Fantastic. So we started the broadcast. I'll give it just a few moments so people can join in. I see people are already joining. So hello, welcome back. As usual, we're going to give it just a few moments as the webinar connects and everyone joins the session. Now, as usual, if you do have any questions at all throughout today's session, do please make sure to ask them using the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom call. Likewise, if you want to join in on the conversation, offer ideas, or just take part in our chat, you please feel free to use the chat box as well below. My colleague Ishan will be present on the call, so he'll be able to answer any queries you have there and also help facilitate the conversation. Lovely, so I see everyone's joining in, so I think we'll get started. So hello and welcome back to iSpy 360's webinar series. My name is Frederick and I am your host, and today is a Tips Tuesday session. Now today I am joined by Robert Hoban, who is the CEO and founder of Offr, a revolutionary online property transaction platform for real estate agents. As the former director of BidX1 and auctioneer at Allsop, Robert has sold over 6,000 properties by auction, including 2,000 by online auction, totaling £1 billion in sales. Now, with 18 years property industry experience, Robert learned his trade as an agent in Savills Country Department, selling period houses, land, and stud farms for the best part of a decade. So he's got an incredible wealth of knowledge, and we're so excited to have him with us. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for such a glowing intro, Frederick. Much appreciated.
As always, it's just wonderful. You make it easy for me to talk about. Now, the first thing I wanted to ask was, would you be able to just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I'm property industry. Has been my entire life ever since I stepped bleary-eyed out of college at the age of 21. And I went through 10 years of traditional sales, as you mentioned, in Savills, kind of the country homes and land and farms. And then at the age of 30, I joined up with another entrepreneur, and we created large-scale auctions in my home country, Ireland, after the financial crisis. And we were selling very large volumes of property by auction, big physical auction, and I was one of the rostrum auctioneers. So I was on the podium with the gavel in hand, bringing it down every 3 minutes. And we created a very successful business there in partnership with Allsop in the UK. And then I oversaw the transition of that into online auctions. That company is called BidX1 and is expanding very successfully into multiple territories. And when I saw the power of online auctions and how it was transforming the sales process, I saw an opportunity to create an independent technology based on my knowledge of traditional sales and auction sales to create a system whereby agents could deliver really, really fast smartphone technology to their customers, and for it to be international. And that was where Offr was born. And I left my job 3 years ago to enter into the wild and weird and wonderful world of Proptech entrepreneurship. And here I am talking to your good selves.
Fantastic. So can you tell us a bit more about Offr and why you believe it's the future?
Certainly. Well, I suppose as a former agent, I understand both the pains of running an agency, whether it's residential agency or commercial agency, and going through transactions and how time consuming and how long and inefficient they are, but then also understanding it from the customer's journey, whether it's a buyer or a seller or a landlord or a tenant. So what we did was we created a system that is very smartphone friendly. It's a button that sits on the broker's website on each property, and up pops a transaction panel when a customer presses it, and it's fully branded in the agent's own coloring, in their own brand. So much like you see chat widgets or help widgets, it's like a transaction widget. And it allows their customer to complete the entire journey using their smartphone 24/7, still dealing with the agent or the broker that's looking after the property, but in a much more digital way, with the agent on hand to answer any questions whenever they need to, but allowing the customer more self-service, access to documents. You submit offers online, you can join an auction, and you can sign contracts all online. So it's about delivering a digital transaction, but keeping the agent very much in the driving seat, and then making operational efficiencies for the agent's own business.
Incredible. Now, I know you've just finished a fundraising bid. Would you be able to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. We've had two seed fund rounds in the last 2 years. We launched the business only 14 months ago, so we're relatively young, but we are launching in 3 different countries: UK, Ireland, Australia, potentially other countries like South Africa and the US. So we just closed a funding round. Interestingly, it was all during the lockdown. So we raised 3 million. And that started in March and closed in June. All investor pitches through Zoom, sitting in my kitchen the entire time, and that was an interesting experience. All investment documents signed with DocuSign, and all money transferred online. So in a way, it was quite symbiotic because it was a parallel to what we're doing for the property transaction. So that was an interesting experience. I got a few grey hairs and learned a lot of lessons, but we got there in the end.
Definitely. And I think with both that experience and sort of with Offr as a platform, do you think smartphones have gone from being something just sort of useful in day-to-day life to actually something that's vital to us getting through the day?
Very much so. I mean, I'll give you a little example. And in fact, it was one of my inspirations for setting up Offr. When we were doing online auctions in my previous business, I had a customer call me, and he had bought 2 properties online, and he was asking for my help to speed up the closing of it with the lawyers. And I took the opportunity to ask him, how did you find the experience of buying those 2 properties online? And he said, well, actually, I'll tell you. He said, it was fine, no problem at all. I enjoyed it. But I'll tell you where I was. I was sitting on an airplane, and he was on a flight from London to Dublin. He had pre-registered to bid in the auction. And he was delayed. The flight was delayed by an hour. He was on the tarmac, and he took out his phone because he remembered he was registered to bid. The 2 lots were up. He started bidding, and about 4 minutes later, he had spent £600,000 on 2 different properties. And he put his phone away before he did any more damage. So while everyone else was, checking their Facebook feed and texting home, he had spent over £500,000 on property. So that was fine. He then took off, and he landed an hour later in Dublin. And he did what we all do when we land. You take out your phone, you turn it back on, and you check your messages. And in his inbox were 2 signed contracts for the 2 properties that he was bidding on before he took off. And he said to me he was blown away by it because he was 20 years buying property. He was actually a seasoned buyer. He said it takes him anything from 4 to 7 months to get the property deal over the line. And he said he did the entire thing from start to finish without leaving his airplane seat, using his smartphone. And he said, I never want to buy property any other way again. So for me, that was a real powerful indication as to that's the future of the property transaction should look like that it's as easy to do it on your phone as it is, to book a flight. But you still have to take into account lawyers and agents and brokers and mortgage brokers and banks. And that's what we did. We worked with banks and agents and law firms to create this sort of single tap. We call it one single tap technology, one touch. Obviously, it is more than that, but each step is one touch. So I think the smartphone is huge because it's the gateway for convenience that everybody is using now. And the property industry, and I know having been 20 years in it, is one of the last industries to find a way of embracing smartphone technology and making it available to their customers and their clients, but without having to go to the expense of developing their own incredibly expensive and complex apps. And that was where, we tried to help with that.
Incredible. Now, I know you're a big part of the Proptech space. What other tools are out there that you believe are going to revolutionize the way that real estate operates, especially with sort of this supercomputer available in their pockets?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, and there's a lot of prop tech and a lot of technology coming into the real estate sector, some of it very successful, some of it less so. And those that will be successful are those that are really solving a problem. Some technology is created that it's kind of just because it's kind of cool, or it's for technology for its own sake, but is it really solving a problem that exists? So those that really solve a problem are going to have longevity. I think you'll see advances in machine learning and AI. I think artificial intelligence is going to have a major role to play in property because there's a huge amount of data already out there, but not all of it has been captured or structured in any very formalized way. And I think that's starting to happen now. You can't have AI and ML without proper data. And I think we're starting to see the era of data in property, but not just data, structured, cleaned, organized, usable, reusable data that can inform the market. And I think you'll see AI and ML playing a large role, not just for the buyer and seller or the landlord and tenant, but for the professional that's providing the advice and is the intermediary. I think you'll see the further growth of the likes of what you guys are involved in with virtual tour technology, with AR and VR as well. And I think that has a very strong role to play. And I think you'll start to see the Internet of Things becoming very important, not just connecting everything to your smartphone, but actually objects and experiences and locations being connected permanently to the cloud, and providing really interesting combined services. So I think you're going to see a lot of advances over the next while, yeah.
Now, with those advances, when it comes to the consumers sort of adopting them, do you think their behavior is easy to change? And how do you think that behavior does affect just general adoption of new technologies?
I think it's going to be successful if something is taken into account, and this is very important. When it comes to real estate, it is a profession. So, you know, that there is a massive professional industry there that are there to provide advice, advisory services, human expertise. And I think the best smartphone technology is going to be the best technology that provides the really fast 24-hour smartphone experience, but with the comfort of a professional to advise along the way. Without that comfort, I think it can be quite daunting. You know, you're talking about some of the most expensive transactions in the world, you know, after, you know, company sales and large IPOs. Property is a massively expensive asset, whether it's to sell or to rent or to lease or to asset manage or to construct. So I think an analogy I use is the fintech revolution that has already happened, you know, 7 to 10 years prior to the real estate sector. Because in finance, you're talking about personal sums of money, you're talking about big sums of money. It's equally sensitive, and it's personal financial and corporate financial information. But if you take online banking now, a huge amount of it is self-service through smartphone apps. But there's always somebody there for when you need help and advice. So, you know, I think the real estate industry is evolving into an area whereby there's much greater self-service to the customer and to the client, but with a large advisory and comfort factor being provided by the professional, because it is a profession. Unlike, you know, retail or travel or other areas whereby, you know, you literally buy your goods online, like law, like medicine, like architecture, like accountancy, there's typically a trained professional in the middle there as well. So it has to accommodate that. So I think that's the key successful blend that's going to be there. Incredible.
Now, in your opinion, why do you think smartphones and Proptech just go so well together?
I think it's that 24/7 nature and the instant information. You know, the generation that's coming up through, you know, you might say the most recent generation that is now at property buying or renting age, and then the next generation coming up want access to information now. They're used to it in every other facet of their life. And the idea of putting a request for something and not hearing back for several days is just alien to them. They just will not understand why they're not able to get what they need using their smartphone. And I think that's what's driving it, is the cultural shift that consumers use their phones for. And not just sort of the consumer profile, but you know, the professional person working in an property investment company wants to use their phone just as much as the ordinary person on the street. In fact, I would suggest that the person working in a property investment company or some other funding organization for real estate is actually quite well informed and very happy to do a huge amount of the due diligence themselves and access other processes, you know, whether it's doing virtual tours, and then speak to the real estate professional when they really need them for those key moments around the negotiation. So I think it's the culture that's been driven by the customer.
And do you think people will start making larger purchases online with these sort of changes to technology and access through smartphone without actually even seeing the item or the property in the real world?
To a point. I think it's still too large a transaction to do it wholesale, as in to see a real large scale activity of purchasing property without at least one physical viewing. I think where really smart virtual tour technology is capable of making a massive change is in being able to curate and create a short list that there might still be one physical viewing or survey required. But I am seeing it happen though. You know, I saw it in the business I worked in, the last business, we were doing online auctions. I would suggest that of 2,000 pure online auctions we held, I would suggest that over 30% of them were bought by people sight unseen. Now, they were investors, they were professional, but it still happened. They did their research, they saw the photographs, and this was previous to virtual tour technologies. This was without even really good tech like iSpy 360. They were still doing so. So I think you will see that grow, and it is closely linked to the quality of the information that's available prior, both visual and statistical information and documentation. So I think, you know, I don't think you'll see it too much with the sort of the homeowner, the consumer type, who is understandably quite nervous and only makes a transaction maybe every 7 to 10 years. But you will start to see it more in the seasoned professional.
Wow. Now, when it comes down to the practicalities, would you be able to tell us just a little bit more about how people would use their phone to make purchases, whether that's buying or renting?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll give you the example of our own company because it's the one I know the most. So where our button and panel appears, it's like having an app, but without having to download an app. So this is browser-based. So the nice thing is people don't have to go off and download an app. An agent or a broker doesn't need to go develop an app. It just automatically pops up on a browser. So whether that's Chrome or Internet Explorer or Firefox or whatever browser is being used, you just go to the URL of the agent's website and up pops the app. I think the key thing is, you know, having access to live information, notifications and updates, and being able to execute functions using smartphones. So whether it's KYC and AML, which of course is hugely important now, onboarding customers, through to submitting qualified offers, providing proof of funds. So that obviously helps in speeding up the entire process, and then making a data room available for all properties. This is a fundamental belief of ours that we put a lot of work into, is having a data room populated with all the legal documents and the draft contract is hugely important in advance of a sale. So many times that sort of work is done too late. It's left towards the end and then there's a mad rush to get it. But data rooms have traditionally been expensive to provide, and you only ever saw them really in large commercial real estate deals. You know, big shopping center or a big office block would have a data room with all the leases and the documents. But, you know, the average homeowner would never have access to information like that. And if you go to any of the big portals, you know, in the UK, you've Rightmove and Zoopla. In America, you've got Zillow and Trulia. You know, there's no data room technology there to make available all the legal documents. So we wanted to provide that service as well as taking it through to signing of contracts and other documents and payment of deposits. So I think you'll see the smartphone take a huge amount of that pain away. Equally for a tenant renting a property, we're about to launch the lettings version of Offr, which will allow a lettings agent to have the technology on their site and allow prospective tenants to quickly register, quickly book viewings into the agent's diary, sign leases, provide tenant referencing, pay deposits, all online with a few taps of the smartphone. And I think that will be an example, and we're certainly not the only one, but an example of how smartphone will transform that process, making it shorter, making it more efficient, but also allowing the professional to get on with the value add that they have, which is the advice, the comfort, the having time to talk to the customer and the client, as opposed to sitting at the desk constantly, you know, firing emails and chasing this and chasing lawyers and trying to get hold of people. Let people have access to it themselves, and they will do it themselves.
It's removing those hurdles, which also means you're going to make more sales quicker. You can get those sales finished, you can get them done, rather than spending that time sending emails, chasing people, doing all of that. It's much, much more streamlined.
Yeah, and a key thing is integrations. You know, so the most successful technologies are going to be those that integrate well with other technologies. There is no point in having 100 fantastic technologies in a silo, and that means you need to have 100 accounts and pay 100 fees. And this is one of the key challenges facing the real estate industry, you know, the professionals providing their service is, well, which technologies do I choose? You know, every day I've got another 10 emails from 10 different Proptechs claiming to be the next best thing in deposit payments or, you know, KYC or AML. The best technology with those that will integrate, so that a realtor will be able to choose the 5 or 6 technologies that they really, really like and only deal with one central login and allow it all to integrate. And that is key. So by way of example, we have really good integrations with DocuSign and Twilio and SendGrid and Onfido and Stripe for online payments, so that our customer, the realtor, doesn't have to have all these separate accounts themselves. They can just have the one account and pay one fee. So integrations is going to play a big part in the future of technology within the industry.
I 100% agree. Now, looking at sort of the mobile phone, how it is now, where do you think technology is going to evolve in the coming years beyond the mobile phone for the Proptech industry?
Ah, yes, the old crystal ball gazing.
My favorite question.
The 2010s have often been labeled the decade of the smartphone, you know, and it really has been dominated. If you think about it back to 10 years ago, what are the 2020s going to be? I have read articles whereby people are saying that the 2020s will be the decade that will see the phasing out of the smartphone. I think it's too early to call the end of the smartphone. I think it will evolve, and I think it will always have an incredibly central place because of the convenience of it and the fact that it is with the user at all times. However, I do see the decoupling of the smartphone as the only connection to all the other devices and appliances and other aspects within general life, but also within real estate. And I think you'll start to see the Internet of Things improving and providing direct connectivity from the car, from the car to the cloud, without having to go through your phone to know your playlists and your music and your directions and destination and GPS. Equally, you know, whether it is other devices in the home or in the workplace will all be independently connected and not reliant on always finding your smartphone to be able to deliver that personalized experience. I think you'll see the likes of, you know, the Alexas and the Google Nest and these other devices playing a large role in speech and search and speech to text and transcripting and things like that. But I think the mobile phone will always retain its place for at least the next decade.
Fantastic. Now, I see we've had a whole host of questions sent in by our attendees. Would it be all right for me to ask you some?
Oh, please, fire away.
Fantastic. So our first question here is, in your opinion, what Proptech looks the most promising in the future?
What Proptech looks the most promising in the future? I think I probably kind of answered that a little earlier on as regards the ones that are solving the greatest problems for those experiences that the end user is having, the buyer, the seller, the landlord, the tenant. I think operational efficiency is hugely important for the agent, and that will always consider to be very important. But I think it's addressing those consumer concerns. And I think it's allowing much more self-service and much more information to be available, and starting to release that that closed circuit mentality around information and data, because I think it's going to get out into the open and be available anyway. So I think any Proptech that is delivering a really strong solution and is using data to the maximum possible ability is going to be the most promising.
Incredible. Our next question is Proptech aimed at the next generation? So sort of millennials, Gen Z, or do you think it could also be open to older generations as well?
I think it is going to be geared towards the next generation. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I have seen some really interesting things over the last 12 months, over the last 6 months, particularly as a result of COVID. I'll give you a nice example. Again, back in my home country in Ireland, there was a €2.5 million farm sale was sold electronically, 200 acres, only a few weeks ago. And the bidders were all local to the area, and they were from the farming community, and all typically then, you know, if you're a farmer with the means to be able to buy land for multi-millions, you would tend to be over a certain age. And the take up from those individuals to bid online and purchase online was huge. They had no issue with it. And equally, there was another farm sold similarly, but the feedback from the other farm was that they had already got used to buying their cattle and their livestock online in the previous month or 6 weeks, because all the cattle auctions had to go online because of COVID. And they quickly learned it, and absolutely no problem. You know, there is an unfair assumption that people over a certain age just won't get involved online or won't use their phones, that they only want to talk to someone. That's only because that was the only option previously. They were, you know, more active maybe in their careers or buying or selling properties. But we have found absolutely no resistance from all ages and all types. Sometimes they might need a little bit more help or explaining, but well able to do it themselves. So I don't see a major issue from an age perspective, but I do see a massive demand coming from the next generation, who will not understand why they have to walk into an office or into a building or travel somewhere just to get information or to talk to somebody.
Fantastic. No, that's a really interesting example. And I think it does go against, I think we unfairly stereotype certain users as not being tech savvy, when really the tech is made so simply and sort of in an innovative way, you can pick it up very quickly.
Correct. That's exactly it. And if it's designed that way, some tech isn't designed that way, and that's a problem. But if it's designed with really good, as you know, UX, user experience, or UI, user interface, anybody can use it.
Incredible, yes. Now, our next question, I think we spoke a little bit about this earlier on, but I think someone's asking more about the future. Do you think in the future, people won't need to see a property in person?
Yeah, I think in the majority of cases, for the short to medium term, I think there will still have to be some sort of physical inspection. Apart from the fact that there needs to be some sort of survey in a lot of cases, I think it's going to be the blend of virtual viewings and physical viewings. But I think you'll see a lot less physical inspections required going forward.
Brilliant. Yes, because it really helps virtual viewings help get through wasted viewings or people who aren't that serious about the property.
But also, I think it provides the opportunity to revisit again in a virtual experience. You know, oh, I forgot now, what was that like, or what was that room like? And you get to revisit it again. And I think, and then equally, and I know from recent chats we had, your latest product is, you know, I don't know, maybe it's not out there yet, but I know that you're looking at the idea of being able to allow, you know, virtual experiences and you know, layout rooms and things like that. And so that's
this virtual staging we've launched.
Yeah.
So that's now available. So it's sort of being, no, you've not aired the company's secrets live. No, virtual staging is live. So that means people can actually put in furniture that is in an empty building, add that furniture digitally. They can renovate a space. So if a space has a really awful interior design or some questionable furniture, we can remove it, put in new stuff. Or if a building's not even made yet, if we have the architect drawings, we can do full CGI. And what we've seen is actually people purchasing properties that haven't actually been built yet. So they're doing it through sort of these full CGI versions of the property, of what it will look like.
And I think that's going to become a phenomenally successful way of selling unbuilt property, whether it's commercial or residential, but primarily residential when you think of new builds, which take time, and being able to do pre-sales. And, you know, where iSpy 360 and Offr are collaborating and you know, will work together very well, is then allowing purchasers to actually purchase the property from the agent and the developer. So having virtually seen it, because there is no physical property to view, maybe a show house, to being able to actually transact all on the smartphone, I think would be a fantastic experience.
Definitely. Now, our next question is, do you think focusing more effort on smartphone app development in the long run is beneficial?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You know, apps, native apps, opinion is divided as to the longevity of native apps. You know, as more and more technology is browser based and available through browsers, negating the need to download apps. I'm a little undecided myself, to be honest with you, as to, you know, like apps play a huge role. You know, you download an app, it's incredibly powerful, but I see a lot of it is going to be much more browser based.
Mm. I think browser-based, it helps with just compatibility. You don't have to worry if it's Android or if it's iOS. You don't have to worry if it's a desktop or if it's mobile. It's actually accessible straight away through Google Chrome, Safari, whichever browser.
It doesn't need to be updated. It's automatically up to date anytime you access it,
But it's interesting because I think some will stay as apps, but I think, yes, we are going to have that sort of greater move across to just browser-based software. It's more accessible. Lovely. So our next question is, how does one go about the process of signing up to Offr? Is it free?
Everyone wishes. No, our technology is available for agents at the moment in the UK and Ireland and Australia to sign up, quickly self-register, and there's a free trial period where agents can transact properties. And then we have the option of either an enterprise agreement, which is a monthly amount that's payable based on how many transactions you do, or you can just pay per transaction. And that's a small percentage of the agent's commission for each successful transaction. So it's actually quite flexible, the fee structure. It's all on our website, offr.io. Happy to help anyone out there. Fantastic. It's free, by the way, for buyers and sellers to use, but the broker is welcome to pass on any charges that they wish to their buyers and sellers.
Fantastic. So if anyone wants any more info, head straight over to Offr's website and you can find out everything you need there. Lovely. So our next question is, in your opinion, how do you think VR headsets are going to influence the buying process?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think they will have a role to play in new builds, at showings and meetings whereby the broker or developer can supply the headset technology and provide immersive experiences. It may be some time before we see really cost-effective home version, as a wearable. Whether it's through the Google Glasses type technology or the actual headset. I think we're a bit off that yet, becoming wholesale. In other words, people would have that as much as they'd have a phone. So I don't know. I think the jury's still out a little bit on how widespread the headset is going to become.
Yes, I know that Oculus recently released a new headset, which is actually one of the most affordable headsets out there and one of the most sort of advanced. But I do think at the moment it's sort of seen more as a little bit more of a gimmick rather than a serious sort of viewing option. But who knows, 10 years down the line, maybe we'll live day to day in our homes with VR headsets.
Well, I think it is, as you nicely put earlier on about the smartphone, it's the nice to have at the moment. And then smartphones became the need to have. And wearables like that may become the need to have. It's hard to know.
Definitely. So our next question is, can you buy a house or property in another country using Offr?
You can indeed. Many properties are transacted to overseas buyers, to international buyers. And in fact, such is the demand for cross-jurisdictional transactions that we're currently translating it into 7 different languages, including Mandarin, so that no matter what country you log on from, the transaction panel on the broker's website will be presented in your native language. So it means that if you had a realtor in Florida and there was a buyer in China or in Hong Kong interested, and there was a buyer in France and there was a buyer in Canada, as well as local buyers, when they log on, they get it in their native language and can transact end to end without having to sort of force an overseas buyer to do everything through English or whatever the native language of the country is. So that's something we're very excited about.
Definitely. It just helps with that accessibility, and that means everyone can use it.
Yeah, correct.
Lovely. So our last question from the audience today is, after a successful launch, where do you see Offr going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, we've all sorts of taking over the world plans. No, but what we really want to do is we're about to launch very shortly the lettings version of our technology. So our goal is to become the go-to transaction technology. And a transaction can be a sale and purchase, it can be a rental for a residential, it can be a commercial lease. So next year we're working on a commercial lease end-to-end commercial lease capability that an agent can use to bring their clients and customers together. So we've currently got auction and traditional sale. We will then have letting soon, and we're in the process of releasing the new homes product within Offr, which allows multiple units in large-scale developments to be transacted online. And then, you know, the interesting thing is we've had approaches from other industries, from other verticals outside of real estate where transaction technology is not developed. So we may look at some of those. And then international expansion, we'd like to start doing some trials in the United States and in other countries on the southern Mediterranean as well, in Europe. So we've had a number of approaches from different countries. So we're going to take our time on the rollout. But it's been very exciting. I love working with agents and brokers. I have been one for 20 years. You know, I understand the pain that everybody goes through, and, you know, understanding that they need to protect their commission, but drive overheads down, but still provide a relevant service to the next generation as a property professional. And that's a difficult balance to get. So, you know, I enjoy working with agents on that transformation journey.
Well, it all sounds incredible. I think the future of Offr is very bright, and I can't wait to see where it's going to go in the next few years. That all just sounds incredible to me. And I think it's going to change, it's going to revolutionize the realtor's sort of experience of selling.
Yeah, hopefully now. That's the goal. So so far the early stages have been good. So we're open to collaboration with any other technologies as well, but also any other traditional professionals that can see any other angles that we could assist them with. We're quite quick to develop and react to interesting problems. So, you know, think of us as an open book.
Incredible. Well, thank you so much, Robert, for coming along and joining me today. This has been a fantastic session. I've learned a lot. I know our audience has learned a lot. So thank you for joining me.
My pleasure indeed. Thanks, Frederick.
It's my pleasure for having you with us. Now, everyone watching, thank you so much for coming along to today's session. This concludes our Tips Tuesday, but we're going to be back again for our Future Friday session on Friday at the same time. So do make sure not to miss out on that, and I'll see you then. So until then, do please stay safe and stay healthy out there, and have a really wonderful rest of your week. Keep it 360, everyone. Bye.